My brother was going to be made partner at his firm, Polk and Brennan. The ceremony was on a Friday night in October. They were going to have it at a hotel ballroom in downtown Philadelphia, with about 140 people, including all of the firm's major clients, his wife, his daughter, his colleagues, his mentor, and because the firm liked to invite extended family for the partner ceremonies, his mother and his sister. I had been invited 2 months in advance. My brother had called me himself. He had used a soft voice. He had said, "Marin, I would really like it if you came. It would mean a lot." I had said I would be there. I had bought a dress. I had RSVP'd yes. I had let my mother believe that things between us were healing. My plan was this. I had made contact with one of the firm's senior partners, a man named Gareth Polk, 6 months earlier. I had told him I was a journalist working on a piece about financial irregularities in mid-sized accounting firms. I had built a relationship with him. I had earned his cautious trust. And 2 weeks before the ceremony, I had quietly sent him a packet of documents, not all of them, just enough. The forged release form, the notarized statement from the estate attorney, confirming the signature didn't match mine. The bank records Russ had pulled, showing the movement of the $47,000 through 3 accounts before it landed in Wren's college fund. And a sworn affidavit from me, typed, signed, witnessed, stating that the money had been taken from my father's estate without my consent or knowledge. I sent it on a Tuesday, with a note. The note said, "I'm not asking you to act on this. I'm only asking you to know it before Friday." That was the plan. That was the entire plan. I did not need to confront my brother. I did not need to make a scene. I did not need to stand up at the ceremony and point a finger. The packet was the bomb. Gareth Polk was the fuse. The timing was everything. By the time my brother walked into that ballroom on Friday night, the partnership offer would already be quietly, professionally, devastatingly withdrawn. He would not be humiliated in public. He would be humiliated in private, which, if you knew my brother, was so much worse. Peak. I want you to understand, I had thought about this for 3 years. I had refined it. I had imagined every variation. The version where I stood up and exposed him in front of everyone, too crude. The version where I sued him in civil court, too slow, too public, too uncertain. The version where I told my mother and let her handle it, impossible, because she would not handle it, and we both knew it. This version was elegant. It was surgical. It cost him the one thing he had spent his entire life building toward, our father's approval in the only form he could still get it, which was professional success at the level our father had never reached. It took from him what he had taken from me. Symmetrically, beautifully. I sent the packet on a Tuesday. I waited. I did not hear anything for 9 days. Long pause. On the Thursday before the ceremony, my mother called me. It was 8:45 in the evening. I remember because I was making tea and the kettle was just starting to whistle. I picked up, I said hello, and there was a long pause on her end. And then she said something I was not prepared for. She said, "Marin, I know what you're about to do, and your father would be proud of you. And he would be so, so sad." I want to stop here, because that sentence broke something in me that the previous 3 years had not broken. And I need you to understand why. My mother, my quiet, careful, peacekeeping mother, who had said your father would have wanted us to stay close, who had let me lie about going to the cemetery, who had spent 3 years pretending nothing was wrong at our family dinners. My mother knew. She had known the whole time about the theft, about the plan, about all of it. I said, "How long have you known?" She said, "Honey, I have always known. I knew the day he did it." He came over that night. He sat at my kitchen table. He told me, and I let him keep it because I was afraid of losing him, the way I had just lost your father. Long pause. I sat down on the kitchen floor. I sat with my back against the cabinet. The kettle was screaming. I did not get up to turn it off. I sat there and I listened to my mother cry on the other end of the phone. The first time I had heard her cry since the funeral, she said, "I knew you would find out. I knew you would do something. I have been waiting 3 years to find out what kind of something." I said, "Why didn't you stop him?" She said, "Because I didn't know how to be a mother to both of you anymore. After your father died, I didn't know how, and I picked the one I was more afraid of losing." Peek, I want you to sit with that for a second, because I had to. I sat with it on my kitchen floor with the kettle screaming, and I sat with it for a very long time. She had picked Harlan, not because she loved him more, because she was more afraid of losing him. Those are 2 different things. They have always been 2 different things. And I, somehow, had not understood that until that exact moment in my 34th year on a Thursday night in October, with a partnership ceremony 48 hours away. I asked her if she was calling to ask me to stop. She said no. She said, I am calling because I want you to know that whatever you do, I will love you. And whatever you do, I will love your brother. And whatever you do, your father would understand both. She hung up. I sat on the floor for another hour. I let the kettle burn dry. Long pause. I did not change my plan. I want to be honest about that. Because part of me thought I would. Part of me thought my mother's phone call would be the moment in the movie where the protagonist sees the light and calls off the operation, and there's a slow violin and everyone hugs. That's not what happened. What happened was, I felt something move in my chest, and I cried for the first time in 3 years, and I cried for almost an hour, and then I got up off the floor, and I checked my email, and I made sure Gareth Polk had not replied to the packet, and I went to bed. Because at that point, I think I knew on some level, that the revenge was no longer about my brother. The revenge was about whether I could finish something, and I had spent 3 years not finishing things. I had not finished my degree. I had not finished my grief. I had not finished a single sentence I had started saying to my mother in those years. I was going to finish this one, even if it was the wrong one.
Friday came.
The ceremony was at 7. I drove to Philadelphia in the late afternoon. I wore the dress I had bought. It was dark green, long sleeves. The kind of dress my father would have noticed and not known why he liked. I checked into a hotel 3 blocks from the venue. I sat on the edge of the bed. I did not eat. At 6:45, my phone rang. It was Gareth Polk. He said 5 words. He said, "It has been handled." That was it. He hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed for another 15 minutes. And then I walked to the venue. I want to tell you what I saw when I walked into that ballroom, because every detail of it is still inside me 3 years later, like a photograph I cannot stop developing. I saw chandeliers, the kind that throw broken light onto the ceiling. I saw round tables with white cloth and small candles in glass jars. I saw a small stage with a microphone and a podium. I saw a banner that said, "Welcome to the Polk and Brennan Partnership Celebration." I saw my brother's wife, Lainey, in a soft blue dress, holding our niece's hand. I saw Wren, 8 years old, in a dress with little flowers on it, looking up at the chandeliers with her mouth slightly open the way kids do when they're in a place that's too tall for them. And I saw my brother. He was standing near the bar. He was wearing a charcoal suit. He had a drink in his hand that he had not sipped, and he was looking at the door. He was looking at the door because he was waiting for me. And when our eyes met across the room, I saw something in his face that I was not prepared to see. I saw the boy in the garage. Long pause. I saw the 13-year-old boy I had watched through the crack in the door 27 years ago, sitting on the floor, crying, with my father standing over him saying, "I expected so much more from you." That same face. Adult now, with lines I didn't recognize and gray at the temples I hadn't noticed before, but the same face. Underneath, the exact same face. Peak he knew. Whatever Gareth Polk had said to him, and I would find out later it had been brief and merciful and final, he knew. And he was standing at the bar of the ballroom that was supposed to have crowned him, and he was looking at me, and he was not surprised. He walked over to me, very slowly. He stopped about 3 feet away, and he said something I have not been able to forget. He said, "I knew you'd find out. I've been waiting 3 years for you to find out." Silence. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't try to explain. He didn't look angry. He looked, and I'm searching for the word here, and the word I keep coming back to is light. He looked light, as if something he had been carrying for 3 years had just been set down, as if I had not destroyed him, as if I had freed him. I said, "Why did you take it?" He said, "Because my dad had given it to you, and I knew you would build something with it." And I had not built anything, and I could not stand the idea of you walking across a stage holding a degree he paid for when I had nothing he had paid for, nothing he had chosen, nothing he had said, "Yes, you, this one, you deserve this" about. He took a breath. He looked at the floor. He said, "It was the worst thing I have ever done, and I have done it every single day since, by not telling you, by not giving it back, by letting Mom protect me, by letting myself believe that putting it in Dren's account made it a different kind of theft. I knew the whole time. I knew you would find out. I think I was almost waiting for it." He looked back up at me and he said, "I'm sorry, Marin. I'm so sorry. And I know it doesn't fix anything." Long pause. I stood there in my dark green dress, in ballroom with broken light, with my brother in front of me, 3 feet away, having just lost the thing I had taken from him. And I waited. I waited for the feeling I had planned for, The feeling I had built 3 years of architecture around, it did not come. Long pause. I felt nothing. I felt, wait, that's not right. That's not honest. I felt a small, terrible, hollow ringing. The way a room sounds after a door closes very quietly. The way the inside of your chest sounds at 4 in the morning when you wake up. Know why? I felt that. And I felt the ballroom. And I felt the chandeliers. And I felt my brother. And I felt how light he had become. And I felt how heavy I still was. I had taken from him exactly what he had taken from me. And it had not given me back what I lost. Pete, I said one thing to him. I said, I don't want the money. He said, what? I said, keep it in Ren's account. I don't want it back. I never wanted the money, Harlan. I wanted Dad. And you can't give me that. And I can't take that from you either. So we're even. Or we're not. I don't know what we are. I turned around. I walked out of the ballroom. I did not look at my mother, who I had seen across the room. I did not look at Lainey. I did not look at Ren. I walked out the front doors of the hotel. I walked 3 blocks to my own hotel. I picked up my bag. I checked out. I got in my car. And I drove home. I drove home in the dark. It was a 2-hour drive. I do not remember most of it. I remember turning the radio off about 40 minutes in because the songs felt obscene. I remember stopping at a gas station outside Lancaster and buying a coffee I did not drink. I remember thinking very clearly, I have nowhere to drive to. That was the thought. I have nowhere to drive to because there was no one waiting at the end of the drive. There was no one to call. There was no one to celebrate with. There was no Odessa because I had not told Odessa it was happening tonight. Because Odessa would have asked me one more time, are you sure? And I had not wanted to answer her. There was no mother because my mother had said her piece on Thursday and I had not called her back. No, there was no father because, well, there was no father. And there was no version of me that was going to walk into my house and feel different than I had felt for the last 3 years. The case was closed. The plan was executed. The bomb had gone off. And I was the only one in the room with the wreckage. I pulled into my driveway at 20 after 10. I turned the car off. The porch light was on because I had left it on that morning. And the house behind it was dark because there was no one inside. I sat in the car, the way I always sit in the car, the way I have sat in the car for 10 minutes every night since I was 19 years old. Ever since college. Ever since I learned that there is a certain kind of quiet that you can only get in a parked car with the engine off. The kind of quiet that lets you become the person who is going to walk inside the house. Except I could not become her. The person who was going to walk inside the house tonight had nothing to walk inside for. She had finished the only project she had. She had built her case. She had presented her evidence. She had won her case, and the courtroom was empty. I sat in that car for almost 2 hours. Long pause, I want to tell you what I thought about. Because I think this is the most important part of what I am telling you tonight. More than the theft. More than the plan. More than the moment in the ballroom. I thought about my father for the first time in 3 years, not as evidence, not as motive, not as a reason to do something. Just my father, the brown leather chair, the black coffee, the architecture books. The smell of his hands when he came home from work, like paper and aftershave. The way he tapped the page and said, look at what people made. The way he wrote, in pencil, on the inside of a navy blue book, build something that outlasts us both. I thought, I have not built anything. I had spent 3 years thinking I was building the most important thing of my life. A case, a reckoning, a plan. And I had built it with the precision of an architect, with drafts and revisions and load-bearing walls. And in the parking lot of my own house, with my engine off, I understood, for the first time, with my whole body, in a way I could not unfeel, that I had not built anything. I had built a wall. I had built a wall around the room my father wasn't in, so I would not have to walk into it, so I would not have to stand in the middle of it, so I would not have to feel how empty it was. The revenge had been the wall. Now the wall was gone, and the room was right there, and it was empty, and I had been avoiding it for 3 years. I cried in the car. I cried for almost an hour. I cried the way I had not cried at the funeral, and I had not cried at the cemetery, and I had not cried on the Thursday night with the kettle screaming. I cried for my father. Just my father. Not for the money, not for the betrayal, not for the wasted years. For him, for the brown leather chair, for the pencil writing, for the man who had given his 9-year-old daughter a book about buildings that have stayed standing for 900 years and had asked her to build something that outlasted them both, and had died on a Wednesday afternoon holding a glass of orange juice. Long pause. I want to be careful here, because I do not want to give you the kind of ending I would have rejected 3 years ago. The clean ending, the redemption, the forgiveness, the slow violin. That is not what happened. What happened is this. I went into the house at midnight. I went to my bookshelf. I took down the navy blue book. I opened it. I read his note. I held it for a long time. And then I put it back and I went to bed and I slept for 14 hours. And when I woke up, I did not call my brother. I did not call my mother. I did not feel forgiven. I did not feel healed. I felt empty, the way a room feels after you finally clean it out. Not better, just emptier, just ready. It took me about 8 months to call my brother. I did not call him to forgive him. I want to say that very clearly. I called him because I finally understood that we were both running from the same thing in opposite directions and that we had been doing it our entire lives. He had stolen money to prove to a dead man that he deserved something. I had built a case for 3 years so I would not have to grieve a dead man at all. We had used each other to avoid what we had actually lost. The call was short. I said, I do not know what we are. I do not know if we are anything. But I think we are both still our Father's children, and I think He would want me to call you. Not to forgive you. To call you. He cried on the phone. I did not. I had already done that crying. I had done it in a parked car. We have spoken about once a month since. Not as siblings, not yet. Maybe never. We have spoken as two people who lost the same person and who hurt each other badly in the years afterward, and who are trying very slowly to find out if there is any version of us that can be in the same room without it being a courtroom. My mother and I have spoken every Sunday since that night. I do not always pick up, but I do most of the time. She does not ask me to forgive my brother. She does not ask me to forgive her. We talk about the weather and the garden and the way the sycamore in my front yard drops leaves in October. Sometimes we talk about my father. Sometimes we do not. Both kinds of conversations matter. I went back to school. I finished my degree. I did it on my own money, slowly, over the next 2 years. I walked across the stage in last May, in a black gown, and there was no one in the audience I had invited because I had not wanted anyone there. I drove to the cemetery the next morning with the diploma in the passenger seat, and I read my father's note out loud to him for the first time. For Marin, build something that outlasts us both. I am trying. I am trying to build something. I do not know what it is yet. I do not think it is a building. I do not think it is even a career. I think it might just be a self. A version of me that can sit in a room without a project. A version of me that can grieve without a target. A version of me that can be a daughter to a dead man without needing him to come back. Long pause. I still sit in my car for 10 minutes before I go inside the house. Some habits do not leave, but I sit in it differently now. I am no longer preparing myself to walk into a room with no one in it. I am, I think, learning to walk into the room because the room is mine. Peak. I want to tell you one more thing. Because I promised you at the beginning that I would tell you the thing I would give almost anything to unlearn. And I have not told you yet. Here it is. The revenge was never going to work. It could not have worked. Not because my plan was bad. The plan was, in fact, perfect. It went exactly the way I designed it. It did exactly what I asked it to do. It costed my brother exactly what I wanted it to cost him. It could not work because revenge is for the wound. And the wound my brother gave me was not the wound I was trying to heal. The wound my brother gave me was $47,000 and a forged signature. The wound I was trying to heal was the death of my father, and my brother did not give me that wound. Life gave me that wound, and there is no one to take revenge on for it. There is no plan. There is no notebook. There is no diner with Russ Hensey. There is no ballroom in Philadelphia. There is no Gareth Polk. There is only the empty room and the work of walking into it. Long pause as I used to think that justice was the same as healing. That if you got the apology or the confrontation or the consequence, the pain would be smaller afterward. I was so sure of this that I bet 3 years of my life on it. Now I know, and I am still learning this. Every Sunday, every time I drive to the cemetery, every time I open the navy blue book, now I know that justice and grief live in different houses. And you can spend your whole life knocking on the wrong door. I thought I was building a case. I was actually building a wall. So I'd never have to walk into the room where my father wasn't. Long pause. So I want to ask you something, and I am asking you because I genuinely do not know the answer, and I think about it almost every day. Have you ever gotten the apology, the confrontation, or the justice you wanted, and still felt like something was missing? What was actually missing? I want to know. Because I think a lot of us are sitting in our cars, in our own driveways, with our porch lights on and our houses dark, holding plans we built for 3 years, finally realizing they were never the right plans. Tell me, below, I will read every single one, because I think the room is less empty when we stand in it together. I have to go inside now. Silence.